Alright, so this is going to be the second in the How to Cook series. But it's going to be a little different. To celebrate, today being May 31st, and it's my 33rd birthday. I've made it 33 times around the sun somehow. We're going to be making tacos, but we're going to step it up a notch. This is going to be a little bit more adventurous in what's done. So it's going to be a flank steak marinated in a cilantro chili lime sauce with a butter poached lobster tail, so a surf and turf tacos with a homemade pico de gallo, as well as a some Cojita cheese, so the authentic Mexican cheese, and I'm gonna throw in a little surprise as well on this. Alright, so first step is we gotta make the chili lime cilantro marinade for the flank steak. For this, we're gonna need some fresh cilantro, some chili peppers. So I'm using a jalapeno as well as a finger hot pepper. We got our lime juice, good old extra virgin olive oil, and then, because I like garlic, we're adding in some minced garlic. First thing that we gotta keep in mind, because the blender that I have is quite powerful, it's a Vitamix, so all I really gotta do with this cilantro is cut it fairly coarsely. I don't really got to worry about the stems. All of that's going to become part of the marinade liquid. So that's all we basically got to do with this. Take this. Into the blender cup it goes. Next, we get into the finger hot chili pepper. Now, I dried this one out a little bit. You can get it fresh. These finger peppers, they come typically in green or red. This one's turning a little yellow. It's a little bit older now and it's also dried out. And because I'm going for a spicier marinade for it, just toss in seeds and everything. Same with the jalapeno. To help, just cut it up a couple different ways. Then, because this is going to be marinating, I'm not afraid to use copious amounts of minced garlic. You can use fresh garlic cloves. This is just a little bit more convenient. A couple bucks at Costco. And in the long run, it actually ends up being a little cheaper, and it stays. And then we have plenty of olive oil. So actually, bring this a little closer. So now we're going to be drizzling in quite a bit of olive oil, and just to save a little bit of time here, let's toss in our lemon juice at the same time. Sorry, our lime juice at the same time. We're going to be using a lot of this. Alright, so now that we've got plenty of lime juice and olive oil, all we do from here, toss our lid on, we put it on the Vitamix base, and we blend it until it's smooth. By smooth, we're talking until this liquid, you could pass it through a strainer, and there's not really going to be anything left. Alright, so the next steps to take once we've got our marinade nicely blended up, as you can see here, that is as smooth as it basically will get. From here, we gotta get the steak ready. So I'm just using a nice cut of flank steak. Flank steak is probably the best when it comes to tacos. It just cuts nicely, it marinates well, it cooks nicely. So all we do, we get a sous vide, because I'm also going to be cooking this sous vide, which that's what this pot is on already for, with the sous vide in. So all sous vide is under vacuum technically, but it's a hot water way of cooking meat to a perfect temperature. You don't have to worry about overcooking it. I have it set where it's going to be going for at 120 Fahrenheit, so it's going to be slightly under medium rare. When it's done cooking, I'm going to have it on for 4 hours at that. So when you factor that in, as well as it's going to be marinating in the chili lemon cilantro marinade for 4 hours while cooking, it's going to come out delicious when it's all done. So with the steak, all we're going to do, we take the steak. No other preparation really needed for this. We just take it and straight into the sous vide bag it goes. Now, we just take our marinade and we pour that baby in there. You want to fill it up you want to get as much yield out of it as you possibly can. I didn't really measure out how much cilantro it was. It worked out to probably about 1.5 cups chopped. So here's what we're kind of left with. We'll just put that in the sink. From here, now we squeeze most of the air out of this. I'm using a reusable sous vide bag. You can get sous vide specific tools and whatnot any store these days that sells kitchen equipment. So we want to push out as much air as possible. You can get vacuum sealers as well with specialized bags. So from here, all we do now, since now the sous vide's already going, we just take the bag, we put it in. Alright, so we're now about 4 hours later. The flank steak marinade in the sous vide is just about ready. So now, in addition to some additional prep here, we're going to get the pico de gallo made. So for this, it's not all that complicated. All you really need are a few simple ingredients. A couple of tomatoes, fresh. These are vine-ripened tomatoes from Farm Boy. A couple chili peppers. This gives any kind of salsa or pico de gallo that heat. We're going to use the remainder of some of the cilantro from earlier, as well as you can use red onion, yellow onion, Spanish onion, or a white onion. I'm going to be using a shallot. I just like how shallots kind of taste. They're simple. They have a little bit of a sweetness to them, I find. Then we get a little bit of salt and pepper. And then we finish it off with some lime and lemon juice. That's all you need to make a pico de gallo. It's simple as... Alright, so now I just did the prep a little bit off camera. So what we get now, we've got our shallots and chili peppers, tomatoes, these also, right in. So now we just take everything, get our minced garlic back out. So just gonna take a quick small little spoon of some minced garlic. With the lime juice, feel free to be pretty liberal with it, because this is what allows everything to kind of mix together, soak together. This is how beautiful it looks in the bowl. Now, I personally like just a quick little splash of lemon juice. Just adds a little bit more vibrance to it, just a different acid hit. So, lemon and lime juices give a little bit of a bitter or a sour taste. Acidic foods have that sour taste to them, but when you mix it in with the sweetness of the tomatoes, the shallots, and the 2 chili peppers I've got in here, as well as with the garlic, you take some black pepper, just freshly crack some of that in there. Here, I'll get you zooming in a bit more over here. Just some simple table salt. I'm using just sea salt from Costco. And now from here, all we do, we just take it and we just mix everything together. That lime juice is going to help everything marinate together, soak up the flavors. So this will typically only have a shelf life or a fridge life uh, 48 hours after we mix it up thoroughly. This is what we get. Alright, now things start to speed up a little bit. Now we start to prep the lobster. First thing, the technical term for it, not really sure if it really is, but a dollop of butter. I'm using unsalted butter. You can use salted butter. It doesn't really matter in the long run. But since how I'm using unsalted, I'm just going to add a little bit of salt into the pan, into the saucepan here. And we set this onto a small burner on the oven. We just turn it on to relatively low heat, onto a simmer, while we continue to prep the lobster. So, the lobster tail might be a formidable thing at first, but a little trick when it comes to lobster tails. First thing you do, spread it on the cutting board, get the kind of thin part of the tail down, and then we just give it a little hammer there. What this does, it helps loosen up the meat inside. It also gives us a nice solid spot for us to now pierce the shell. All we do, quick little tap down, turn the knife, keep the knife in there, applying pressure the entire time while we crack through the shell. It's going to come up a little bit, but that's alright. We just finish cutting through the shell. Now, we split the shell open so that we can get to the beautiful meat inside. This is a little trick that I learned at my first job some 16 years ago. It takes a moment, but this is the best way to be able to get most of the meat out. So from here, now we can see, and the meat comes out very easily. We just set that aside. We just so here we can now turn off the soup. Alright, so now we've emptied the water bath. Our steak is now essentially fully cooked, or since how we went with 120 degrees, we need to bring the temperature up to medium rare, which is about 130 degrees Fahrenheit. First thing we need to do, we gotta preheat a pan. Alright, so now that we've emptied the water bath, the butter is on and warming up, we have a fresh pan here preheating to get nice and hot. What we gotta do, we gotta remove this boiled in a way. Alright, so once we've removed the steak from the marinade, we actually keep the marinade off to the side because we're going to continue to use that. But now that the butter is nearly up to temperature, we wait for it to just get close to a boil. At that point, then we add the lobster tail meat in so that we can poach it at that point. But it's at this point now that we can make a simple taco sauce. So for this, I'm going to need some sour cream. That's about all I need. Now you get some taco seasoning. We add a generous amount of this. Some paprika. So at this point, nothing's really, I'm not really measuring anything. I'm just going just by look and feel, as well as just the smell. I don't want the sauce to be overly spicy, so I'm not going to add too much extra cayenne. I am, however, going to add a small amount of cayenne pepper. Just to give it a little bit of heat, but not too much, because a small amount of cayenne pepper can really overpower things. So all we do now, we just incorporate it all in, we mix it up nicely, all while things continue to preheat. pan's now preheated. There's a little smoke coming up off of it. So at this point, in goes the steak. This is only going to take a couple of minutes on each side. Like, you're talking 2 minutes per side. Make sure that our butter is also brought up to temp. We set our sauces aside. We get everything ready at this point just to finish off the meat. So we add a little extra seasoning, just a quick little spritz of salt. So the smell coming off of here right now, you're going to have a little bit of a smoky scent coming. That's from the marinade itself. Don't worry, there's nothing to be alarmed of at this point. So it's looking like this right now. Just going to let it be for a moment. You want to make sure everything's well ventilated. I've got my doors open so that I don't have the hood fan overpowering the sound in here. Just going to turn the heat up a little bit on the butter. So we're almost ready to flip the steak. A key when it comes to flipping the steak is it should come up fairly easily. As you see, we've got some color going. We're just going to let that go for about another 30 seconds. We're going to add a little bit more heat in there. So we can now take the lobster meat, add it into the butter, and we want to be basting it right away. We want it in the butter, but we want to be constantly kind of keeping it moving as much as possible. This allows for even heating. So our steak is now looking much better on the bottom here. So we just take it, we flip it once. That's all we're going to be flipping this. We cook it the rest of the way on the other side. Just getting some things ready here for the next and final steps. Always make sure that our knife is nice and clean and sharp. We'll set our knife aside over here. Just gonna give our cutting board a quick little wipe down. One of the most important aspects when it comes to cooking is making sure you've got clean surfaces as well as hygienic surfaces. So this is twofold. One, it allows you to make sure that you're in a safe space for work, but also it prevents cross-contamination or a raw product being contaminated with a pathogen from contaminating a cooked product. So our steak is nearly finished. So remember, we saved some of that marinade. So I'm just going to quickly show you what's going on in the saucepan here. So our lobster, it's only about 45 seconds away from being done. So we're actually going to turn the heat off. Baste it, baste it, baste it. Keep the lobster in with the butter, but take it off the heat. Now the steak, we're done. But what we're actually going to do, we are now going to take the rest of our marinade and add it into the pan. If you're a little adverse to heat and steam, keep your fingers clear. We turn this up nice and high. cook it down inside the sauce now. What this is doing is it's just further penetrating the flavors from the marinade in. So at this point, the flank steak itself is done. I'm just trying to get a hold of it to bring it out. We can turn the heat off there. So the secret with steak of any type, let it rest. In the late Anthony Bourdain's words, when it's done, don't fucking touch it for 7 minutes or so. This allows the meat to rest, the juice to relax back in, and for it to finish cooking without any added external heat. Now it's just going to cook from the inside a little bit from the heat that it already has within it. Alright, now we get on to some of the fun stuff. We got some freshly grated Cojita cheese. It's a Mexican cheese that's great for fajitas, tacos, basically all Mexican cuisine. This is the cheese to get. Now, while we get a corn tortilla onto a flat skillet just to warm it up, we're going to cut some of the steak here. Going to cut some of this up. We're going to take our freshly cooked lobster. I'm going to cut a small portion of that off for this first taco. Again, we'll cut this up nice and fine. It might seem a little sacrilegious to be finely cutting up lobster tail, but trust me, the flavor is well worth it. So we flip our tortilla. Now, for the best part, assembling our tortilla. This first. Put the steak in. I'm just going to set this on the cutting board just to make it a little easier. First, we set it. So how I'm going to present this is going to be a little bit different from what I normally would do. From here, we're going to take some of our taco sauce. Just a very small amount, just right down the middle. This just adds a little flavor, a little creaminess to it. Some of our Cojita cheese. And now we go to the freshly made Pico. Get a nice little spoonful. Just gonna add a little bit more. And then alright, and there you have it. Cilantro, chili, lime, flank steak, surf and turf tacos with Cojita cheese, freshly made pico de gallo. It's delicious. It's a treat type of thing. It takes a little bit longer than your standard tacos, like actual prep time for everything. It's only really about 30 minutes. You can make up as much of this as you want and give it a try. Let me know what you think. Anyways, Coach Tony, Wrestling Podium Performance. Bon appetit!